Every great character has an interesting backstory, and I feel that a lot of players overlook this during character creation. So after you've rolled up your character, now you need a compelling backstory. My 10 elements to creating a backstory should give you everything that a character needs. It'll make them thematic, well-rounded, and interesting to play. Building a backstory, I kind of think of as like building a house. I'm going to give you the blueprints to how to build that house and how to create a great backstory today on Fat Dragon Adventures. I'm going to use my character Canute today. He's a Lightfoot Halfling Ranger as an example on how to develop a compelling backstory. The first thing I like to think of is the foundation. This is what I'm going to build everything off of, is this first element. So the first concept or the first element is character concept. I start by developing a clear concept of my character. I think about Canute's race, his class, his alignment, some of the traits and abilities that he has, and things like that. So if we look at Canute as my example here, I'm going to just start with his race. So what are Lightfoot halflings known for? They're known for their agility, they're known for their resourcefulness, and they're also known for their survival skills. As a ranger, Canute has a deep connection to nature and animals. So while I'm developing my character, I think about those kinds of things. What do you guys like to include in the backstory when you first create your characters?
I like to roll my character first and see what stats I can give them. I do have like an outline in my head who I kind of want them to be. Like I know I wanted to experience being a bard next. So I did rolls, and I'm gonna set like their charisma really high and stuff, and wisdom. But I also kind of like to think like based on what abilities I got for them, and like where their stats land, like why they would be this way. Like for example, my other character, like Finnegan, my own ranger, I rolled really high on his dexterity. And he's like a +10 on a bow or something, so he like almost can never miss. And I like to give him the background that he is a survivalist and he had to survive very harsh environments, and that's why he knows these environments really well, and also why he's very dexterous with his bow.
Great, yeah.
He has to be.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like I have an outline. Usually I start with, oh, I've never played this class, I want to do this, or I've never played this race, I want to try this. So, and then like you said, you got to roll things up accordingly. But for the backstory, I feel like I frequently like to start with finding a picture. Maybe that's just me, but I like to, if I'm like, oh, I've never played a gnome and I want to play a gnome, I start looking at pictures of gnomes, and it helps me develop kind of, what kind of character they would be. And it just helps me make that story in my head.
That's cool. Yeah, I can see how that would be helpful. So the second element that I like to think of when I'm creating my backstory is the origin and the background. So where is Canute from? Who are Canute's people? So I kind of imagine that Canute is from a small halfling village, and maybe the name of that village is Greenleaf Haven, and that is deep within a forest. As far as his people are concerned, I think maybe that his family has a long history of being hunters and trappers. What kind of origins do your characters have in the current ones that you guys have created?
Well, the current ones, because we're actually identical triplets, so it was actually really fun to create, since 3 of us, all girls, all died at the same time, and we decided to come back as triplets. So we had to work together to develop a lot of the where you're from and your family kind of thing. Like I had some ideas in my head, but I had to sit down and talk to my sisters to really flesh that out. And of course, we're all playing different classes, so we had to work with finding a background that would encompass and lean towards that for all of us.
So there was some like collaboration between you and 2 other players, and
Yeah.
she's one of the players.
She is.
Yeah.
I've never had, since it's triplets, I've never had so much collaboration on building a character backstory.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, and that's kind of fun. And this is something you do like during session 0, I would imagine.
Well, since we died mid-campaign, we didn't exactly have a session 0, which made it a lot harder. And my previous character, we had a session 0. It makes it a lot easier to really develop that deep backstory. This one, there was not a lot of time because we had a week between sessions to create our characters. So we were all texting like crazy all week. So that, you know, we work different shifts and whatnot, so everybody's responding at different times. But so there was a lot of texting going on, and then talk before and after sessions usually. And it's been what, a couple weeks now, maybe 3-4 weeks, and I think we've got it pretty fleshed out, pretty deep at this
Got
point.
it nailed down, huh?
Yeah. I think for us, because we didn't have that session 0, we kind of had to play for a little while into it to develop it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Do you have anything to add to that?
Like I said, like my phone was going off a lot, and I was like, I'm not too picky. I just like I want to play a bard.
She's like, yeah, you guys, whatever you want to do. This is
Like,
this is
whatever
what
you
I
can
want to
play
do.
bard.
I feel like everybody kind of had that. This is what I want to do. So everybody had their own character, their own class, things that they wanted to do. So it was just a matter of making that mesh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the third element in my blueprint to building a awesome backstory is what I like to call early life and their history. So with Canute, I would imagine that he has spent a lot of hours exploring the woods around him, learning about all the different flora and fauna. I also imagine Canute as having an adventurous spirit, and this adventurous experience or adventurous spirit and curiosity has kind of wound him up in some trouble every once in a while, which he has survived and persevered through. So that's kind of earned him the respect of the village's more experienced rangers. So they've kind of taken a notice of him because of that. With the characters you guys have now, have you thought about what kind of early life and history your characters have?
Yeah, actually, we just finalized that finally after some debate over the last few weeks, just trying to come up with some good stories. And actually, one of the other players at our table really helped us kind of change it because the guys pointed out we were leaning very Disney. So they kind of helped us make it a little more unique than what we were originally talking about. But since we're Tritons, so I play a warlock and you play a bard.
Yeah.
And then our other sister is a fighter. So we had to come up with a traumatic backstory in our childhood that would cause that to happen. And of course, we're adventurers. So why did you leave home had to kind of play into that. So yeah, we ended up with, we were kidnapped as children, and we've been adventuring and exploring and trying to find our way home and remember where we were from because we were so young. And I picked Sage as a background, so that worked into that as well. Like I'm constantly researching and trying to find more information.
Right.
So
Awesome.
that's how we made that work.
Did you have anything to add?
I know you went Disney, and like
I did.
someone suggested our like siblings should have been like sold as slavers or something.
Yeah.
And then with my bard, I went somewhere really dark, and you're like, not that dark.
No, that's too dark. Well, I thought it was funny when they said we were going Disney, and I was like, well, I'm a Triton, and I picked Genie as my pact, so yeah, I was totally thinking like on an Ariel line there, so I was already on the Disney thing, and then we were going back, so I was thinking, well, of course I am, because...
Yeah, when you first said that, I was thinking more like Aladdin. But
yeah. Well, I think I was thinking Ariel just because Triton, and I was thinking like genie bottle floating in the water.
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah, cool. So my fourth element is major events and turning points. And I think you guys just kind of touched on that a little bit. But I like to think of this as like triumphs and tragedies that Canute, my character, has had. So one of the ones that I came up with for him was Canute was on this solo expedition one day, and he had stumbled upon a wolf pup that had become separated from the rest of his pack. So Canute kind of felt a connection with this animal and decided to nurse this young wolf, bring him back to health because maybe he was, really hungry and he had been out in the elements for a while and that kind of stuff. And because of this act of kindness, this wild animal, this wolf pup, has formed a connection with him, and the two of them can have kind of sparked this lifelong bond between the two of them. And then taking it a little further, another step, I thought maybe, he would give this wolf pup a name, and I think Ember would be really appropriate here.
I love that name.
Yeah.
Although I think I might have had a character named Ember at one point.
Yeah.
I just remembered that.
Yeah, I think
that was
maybe you
I think
did
that
at
was a
one
long
time.
time ago. I would have to look that up. I actually forgot till you just said that.
So what kind of events,
Yeah, and we talked about being kidnapped as children and whatnot, and worked with slavers. But I think the traumatic turning point for my character, because I'm a warlock, would be the pact. I don't know if I would call it traumatic, but I was thinking, life changing for sure. So I was able to make, I found a genie bottle in the ocean and was able to make a pact, and that gave me the ability to break from the slavers with my sisters.
Yeah, that's really kind of awesome. So the fifth element in my house building exercise, my backstory exercise, is what I like to call challenges and obstacles. I like to explore the struggles of my character that help kind of define their resilience. So going back to Canute, who is my example here, I'm thinking that during a harsh winter, this dire wolf pack has attacked his village. And Canute and his newfound companion, Ember, have faced these dire wolves and somehow has driven them away. And because this was such a perilous fight, Canute has ended up with a scar that's on his right arm. So now, when he can use that, like during the game sessions, like maybe, an NPC, or when he first meets the party or whatnot, they can notice his scar, and now he has something to talk about, something that he can socially interact with the other players and the NPCs with. He can explain that story. So yeah, what do you guys think about that? What kind of challenges do your current characters have included in your backstories?
Well, I think relationship and allies would have to be our identical sisters.
Yeah,
Since
we're talking
triple.
about challenges and obstacles.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah, no
I thought
worries.
you were talking about challenging relationships. Yeah, I think it really just has to. The only thing I can think of is going back to the, trying to find our home being our ultimate goal that we're trying to reach, and the obstacles of getting away from the slavers. But I think because we have that backstory, so we all have flaws, as it were, because of the things that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think?
I'm thinking maybe my character, one of their many motivations could be finding themselves beyond an entertainer, because they had to do this role for so long with the slavers and stuff, and they have to start finding themselves.
Oh, okay.
Maybe finding their home would help that.
Cool. So the sixth thing, or the sixth element in my backstory creation, is what I like to call relationships and allies. creating meaningful relationships for your character's backstory is really important and gives you a lot of role playing opportunities. So with Canute here, I think that he's become known amongst the other villagers as kind of the wolf whisperer because he has this relationship with Ember, his companion. I think he's also kind of developed a strong bond with a mentor, and maybe I would take it a step further and give that mentor a name, like Elder Willow, maybe could be that name. I think Elder has taught him the ways of being a ranger. I think that Elder has also passed on the knowledge of the ancient knowledge of the forest to him. So maybe that kind of explains how he's gotten the knowledge of being a ranger. So, what kind of meaningful relationships has your characters gotten, or have you thought about that yet?
Well, obviously the sisters. And I was
Yeah.
saying earlier is the obstacle as well, because we're always together. We don't get along because, sisters. And but we still have that bond to always try to rescue and save each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I have my pact. So that has to be in a life-altering relationship, right?
Yeah. So you'd have a relationship with this genie.
Yep.
Have you given that genie a name?
Actually, no. I've just called it Genie. It said Genie. So I really haven't given a name. I'm going to have to give that some thought. I
Yeah.
don't think I've even thought about that.
Have you even thought about what this genie kind of looks like? Because I imagine that Ember is this wolf, and maybe it has kind of like a salt and pepper kind of coat.
It's funny.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know. Maybe I'm embellishing too much, but I don't know. My imagination runs away with me.
That's exactly where
Yeah.
my head went when you said Ember. So I think that's kind of funny, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going back to Disney and Aladdin
Of course.
and genies. I could just didn't even think about it. Of course, that and we actually recently watched. Oh, what was the name of that movie with the genie? Something about 1,000 something.
1,000 Years of Longing.
That's the one.
Oh.
That was such a great movie and such a great genie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of relationship with you or Janie or?
No, I was thinking a picture of
Okay.
the image.
Yeah. So let's talk about the seventh element, and I'm going to call that one motivation and goals. I like to kind of determine what drives my character, what's really inside of him. So Canute's primary motivation, I would think, is protecting the nature or the balance in nature. And also, I think that's his number one thing. But I think also maybe secondary in his mind is he wants to ensure the safety of his village, and he seeks to uncover all of the knowledge of the ranger and their abilities. So I think that opens up opportunities, like I said, with motivations of why he wants to increase his skills and things like that. What drives your characters? What's their motivation? Kind of
I
like,
think so. It's kind of like trying to find themselves outside of an entertainer and outside of their trauma by finding their home and stuff. Because they're so young when it happened.
Yeah, same. I feel like our main motivation is always going to be to try to find home, right? To see if our family's still there, if they've, have been attacked and killed, or if they're still around. But
so it's find your people.
Find your people. But then also because of that, I made this pact, so I'm driven to more power, to stay safe, keep my sisters safe, find home, more power.
So you kind of set yourself up as the protector of the other two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say
That's
our other
cool.
sister that's the fighter, same way, very anger management issues have developed with her character and fighting to protect us. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that when you guys create backstories too, you should kind of talk to your DM about some of these motivations, because this gives your DM like ideas to develop adventures, with that kind of stuff. So it's a two-way street there. So the eighth the eighth element, I like to call flaws and quirks. think you kind of touched on flaws and quirks a little earlier. I think of flaws as quirks as, nobody's perfect. I think flawed characters are a lot more interesting than perfect characters, that's for sure, especially from a thematic and a role-playing perspective. Flaws can also create interesting role-playing opportunities. So let's talk about Canute a little bit. Canute I've always imagined him as somebody that's somewhat impulsive, and he's prone to taking risks to protect others. You remember that's one of his motivations is protecting others, and I think he takes that almost so serious that it's a flaw in his character, and it kind of gets him in trouble. He has a deep-rooted fear in not being able to protect the people around him and his village too. So, what kind of flaws are in your characters, or have you guys gone that far in your character development?
Since I was a character that was sold to slave traders and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking as an extra backstory. Maybe my character got kind of broken out. Since we don't want to go the dark route of why I have charisma either. Mm-hmm. Maybe my character could have gotten broken out by a boyfriend or something, and he could have abandoned her. Mm-hmm. And because she feels like her parents abandoned her, and this guy abandoned her, and she doesn't know where her sisters are, and she's alone. Maybe I was thinking about giving her this detachment disorder.
Oh, okay. Neat.
What's it called? Cold detachment disorder or something?
Uh-huh.
Where you can't really feel mentally safe with someone fully.
Wow. So yeah, you've
deep.
given us a lot of thought.
Yeah.
That's cool. What about you?
Well, I have the sage background because we've been trying to do the research, find our home, that sort of thing. But I find it funny that maybe it's just me, but I feel like every character always ends up with the same flaw from the chart, even if I just randomly roll the dice, or if I pick it because it fits into my backstory, which is kind of the way I went with this one. But it's most people scream and run when they see a demon. I stop and take notes on its anatomy. And it's hilarious because I think every character I've ever had always ends up with that one. Mm-hmm. Like I said, even when I roll a die because I'm like, oh, I want something different, it always ends up coming with that one.
Nice. Very nice. So the ninth, got my fingers right this time, the ninth element is understanding your character's moral compass. And I think this goes to the heart of alignment. So with Canute, he follows the principles of neutrality. Remember, he's always seeking a balance in nature. And he respects that natural world because of it. And he believes in harmony. So that's kind of who he is, or what guides him. What about your character's moral compasses?
I feel like because of the sage background, I tend to be open to most people just because I want the knowledge. I want to learn. I'm driven to the power. But overall, it's protect the innocent because of the traumatic childhood of being taken. I always want to defend the innocent. I don't want that to happen to other people. It's did that PTSD trauma, if you will.
Right. What about you?
Live fast and hard.
Okay.
You can die at any time.
You can smoke the spice with the little weird elf guy.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So the 10th and last one is what I like to call ties to the wider world. I like to connect my character's backstory to the rest of the world. So with Canute, his village is part of a wider forest, a vast forest, if you will. While he's been out ranging in that forest, he's come across other cultures, he's come across other races, and this has shaped his world, or his wider view of the world beyond his actual village. What about you guys? How connected are your characters to the wider world?
I have to say, because we were taken and we're searching for where we come from, we've probably explored a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of ties to the wider world, and learning that, and just that exploration, because of the, we're adventurers.
Yeah.
I think you have to kind of find the music and like the will to live in everything, because everything could change in a moment, or anyone could leave or die in a moment.
Yeah. Especially in some of the more brutal adventures that your awesome DM puts up.
You could fall into lava at any minute.
That's right. You could do that.
Sorry, I'm not gonna let go of that one anytime soon.
So with these 10 elements that I've given you guys, I think you'll have a more well-rounded backstory to your character. And this puts them in a position where they can contribute a lot more to the rich tapestry of your D&D campaign. Thank you for joining us, and remember, saddle up and ride that fat dragon.